Welcome to the greatest podcast in sports betting entertainment. My name is Tanner Kern, certified G, bona fide stud, and you can't teach that. And this right here, this is G Money Grant Mitchell. We are here breaking down the college football playoff, the most heated debate that shouldn't even be a debate of all time. And you can't teach that. Bada boom, man, people in the room. G Money Grant Mitchell, how you doing?
I'm doing really well, Tanner. Back from the holidays, was out in Colorado visiting my mom and some family. Hope everybody had a nice Thanksgiving. I don't know what you did, but we hung around, ate a whole lot of food. We were having the turkey versus ham debate on the last show that I was here for. We didn't even end up doing ham or turkey. We actually did some short ribs, and I got to admit, it was pretty good. I much prefer that to turkey.
Yeah, definitely. I don't really like turkey. I think turkey's stupid. The only reason we have it is because the Pilgrims ate turkey with the Indians when they got here. But again, I would rather eat a steak.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. And we actually, it's a funny story. So I said we did short ribs. We went to the store and we were looking for brisket, and that's actually what we were going to smoke it. But I think they didn't have the right meat at the time, so we ended up going with short ribs. But yeah, there are a bunch of things I would rather eat than turkey. As traditional as it is, it's probably one of the worst meats that we put up there in the conversation of, I guess, what's common.
Yeah, definitely. Looking at the debate of turkey versus a ham or another meat, I think the bottom line is Thanksgiving is all about the side dishes.
Yeah, we agreed sweet potato casserole is the best, right?
Yeah, I like sweet potatoes, mashed potatoes, any kind of potato is good. Cornbread. I mean, Thanksgiving's great. I like the pies, but like turkey is not the centerpiece of Thanksgiving. And if someone says turkey is the centerpiece of Thanksgiving, they're lying to you.
How many plates did you eat?
I only had 2 actually. So I'm 210 pounds. I woke up day after Thanksgiving at 210, which was very surprising to me. Did not go to the bathroom either, so it's very impressive. And then actually I did go that night. And then the next day, Saturday, I woke up at 212. And then Sunday, I woke up at 214. So I don't know. Maybe it was the extra eating, but the day after I was 210. Now I'm back down to 212. So I think tomorrow I'll be about 210, back to normal. How about you?
Yeah, I only had 2 plates as well. I will admit that instead of pumpkin pie, we had a pumpkin cheesecake. It was like a pumpkin coffee cheesecake, but it was amazing. And so that pretty much did fill me up for the rest of the day. Right now, I believe I'm about 195, so I'm actually not too far behind you.
Damn, Grant, getting big over there.
Yeah, I mean you're 6'4", so maybe I should take that as a sign I gotta chill a little bit.
You've been pumping though. You've been getting in the gym.
I've been trying. Yeah, the Commanders they might give me the call. I got to be ready for them.
There you go. All right, guys. So before we get into today's podcast where we talk about the college football playoff and a little NFL, we need to tell you about WSN's NFL Pick'em contest where you can win $499 in cash prizes. Every week of the season, guys, you sign up, you make your picks against the spread. If you have the best record, then at the end of the month, you are contacted and you're entered into a prize pool. And if you are one of the prize winners selected who had the best records, you can actually win $499, Grant. That's pretty cool, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Getting paid to watch sports doesn't get better.
No. So, guys, it's free to play. Make sure you go to WSN, sign up. The link will be down in the description for the podcast. So sign up, get it in, guys, make your picks, and have the chance to win $499. Pretty cool stuff. And Grant, tell them why they should also check out WSN.com just to check it out because it's the best.
Well, I mean, when you've got competitions like this going on, we've got them going right now. You get them during the NBA season, March Madness, the MLB, all that great stuff. You're going to find contests, plenty of opportunities to win some prizes. That also includes sportsbook promo codes. If you want to get yourself deposit matches, odds boosts, bonus bets, whatever it is, you're going to get those opportunities over at WSN.com, along with analysis, previews, and betting picks from myself, Tanner, and a team of experts. So really anything you want in the sports betting world, you're going to find it over there.
That's right. All right, guys, college football playoff. It is Tuesday. The rankings come out tonight. Things could change after conference championship weekend. A few things are going to have to go in favor of one of the SEC bubble teams, probably to get in, most likely SMU beating Clemson in the ACC championship. But right now, Alabama is minus 192 on FanDuel to make the college football playoff. They were plus 100 when the day started yesterday. So there must have been a big shift. Must have been something leaked out that made people think Alabama is getting into the playoff. But Grant, I'll start with you. we both talked about this before. There shouldn't even be a debate if you're talking Alabama, South Carolina, and Ole Miss. I think it's the craziest thing that people are saying South Carolina is playing the best right now, so they should be in. No, they're not.
Yeah, and I mean, Florida State was playing the best when they were left out of the tournament. It doesn't have anything to do with that. I mean, maybe they'll take into account a small part of it, but that's not the end all be all in the discussion. If we're going to look at in this exact moment, and keep in mind, we don't know for sure that South Carolina is better than Alabama is right now. Yeah, they beat Clemson, and yes, Bama completely pooped the bed against Oklahoma, but if those teams are going to face off on a neutral field, can you look me in the eye and confidently tell me South Carolina deserves to be favored? I don't know that you can. And the biggest problem for South Carolina, they've exceeded expectations. They've had a great season. I was actually talking with one of my buddies. We were discussing if South Carolina has the best defensive front in the entire country. When I looked last, I think they were third in sack percentage and seventh in rushing yards allowed per attempt. So they have a very good team. I'm not trying to take that away from them. But if your two competing teams are Ole Miss and Alabama, and you lost to Ole Miss and Alabama, you can't get in. It's that simple.
No, and looking at Alabama's schedule too, you beat Georgia, you lost to Tennessee by a touchdown. You beat Mizzou, you blew Mizzou off the field. You beat LSU, a team that looked like they were going to the playoffs at that point. So that's 3-1 in your ranked games. No doubt about it. Those are big wins. And honestly, they should have beat Tennessee, but we can't say should have won. South Carolina was there are 3 ranked wins, good ranked wins. Texas A&M, who's really not that good. They beat an ACC team in Clemson that nobody was talking about prior to the carnage that happened a couple weeks ago in college football. And then they also beat Missouri by 4 points, where Alabama blew them off the field. And then the head-to-head, and I don't get why people are missing this so much. The head-to-head is what matters. And Alabama beat South Carolina. People are saying they only lost by 2. Whoop-de-freaking do. They still lost the game. Ole Miss blew South Carolina off the field. So if we're talking anyone that should get in over Alabama, you can make the argument that Ole Miss should get in over South Carolina, and then maybe jump Bama too if you feel their schedule is good enough. Now, losing to LSU doesn't help you. But Bama's losses are indescribable. They are horrendous. But you can also, if you're the committee, you can chalk those losses up to this team just didn't show up in this game. Because when Alabama and Jalen Milroe are playing well, that's one of the best teams in the country, and they can beat anybody. And putting all that aside, though, the wins are better for Alabama, and they have the head-to-head. So I don't even know why people are debating this.
The wins are better for Ole Miss, too. I mean, both Bama and Ole Miss beat Georgia. That's a better win than anything South Carolina has, and both Alabama and Ole Miss beat South Carolina head-to-head. So when you have the same record and you look at the tiebreakers, it's not close. I'm sorry. Also, I dabble in some bookmaking of my own. I have some models and some systems that run everything. I can tell you, Ole Miss and Alabama are favored just as far as when you look at creating spreads. They are so far ahead of where South Carolina is that it should not be a surprise to see how South Carolina left out of the playoff.
Well, let's be real, too. If you stick South Carolina and Alabama on the same field in South Carolina, I think Bama's at least a field goal favorite, at least on the road.
Yeah, definitely. And also, we're crediting South Carolina for the win against Clemson, and we should, even though they didn't play great, and it was an injured Clemson team, but they still went out there and they still found a way to win the game. Guess what? Another SEC team, Georgia, beat Clemson 34-3. Now, I get that that's a common opponent. It was the start of the season, whatever the case may be. There's just there's not one thing I can look at South Carolina and say, this is why you are more deserving than Bama or Ole Miss.
Now, when it comes down to the ACC argument, say Clemson beats SMU, which will be a travesty. They go get the bye. Does SMU get bumped for Alabama?
If Clemson beats SMU, I don't think they do, since Miami is out. Here's the way I see it. So I think we're going to exclude Bama from this, and we're just going to focus on the question, does Bama get in? So you're going to have 4 Big Ten teams. You're going to have Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, and Indiana. So there's your 4. You're going to get 3 from the SEC. Again, this is excluding Bama. You're going to get Texas, Georgia, and Tennessee. So that's 7. Now you're probably going to get 2 ACC teams. You're going to get SMU and Clemson. I think one makes it as the champion. One gets in, the rest of the rankings. I thought it had a chance to be Miami, but the betting odds say not. So Clemson's probably in. So that's 4, 3, 2. So we were at 9. You're going to get the G5 no matter what, whether it's Boise, UNLV, Army. So that puts you at 10. We know you're only going to get one Big 12 team. There's no chance you get more than one. So that puts you at 11. Well, you've got one spot left. Am I missing something here? If you have one spot left and you're looking at the rest of the teams, if your options are the
No, Notre
second
Dame.
best,
You forgot Notre Dame.
you're
So you
totally
don't
right.
you don't have that. That's what I'm saying. You don't have that spot left unless if SMU does not beat Clemson, if Clemson beats SMU and you're not willing to knock SMU out, which nothing surprises me with the committee. Like if SMU lost to Clemson, I could see Alabama jumping them. I don't see it as much, but because it's the bigger brand, though, I think you might get Alabama in. But you don't. And if SMU does not beat Clemson, it's a lot tougher road for Alabama to get in.
I totally forgot about Notre Dame. That's really thrown my whole thing to the side. I think you're right. I know you're right. The committee wants to put Bama in over SMU if they can. If SMU goes 11-1, and the whole thing too is the committee doesn't want to punish teams for losing in the conference championship. It's almost like a bonus game where it can help you, but it can't hurt you. So right now, SMU has to be ahead of Alabama. Like there's no way around it. And if you're not going to punish them, then even if they do lose to Clemson, then they should still be ahead of Bama in the rankings. But I can't 100% say that's what would happen if Clemson did win. And I'm also with you. It would be a shame if Clemson wins the ACC championship, gets a first round bye even. At that point, I don't even know if they get the bye or the Big 12 team gets the bye. But I hope it's SMU wins it and then Bama gets in, because if my choices are Bama or Clemson, I trust Bama to be more competitive.
Oh, yeah, too. And everyone's saying like South Carolina just beat Clemson and that's a marquee win for your program. And like people were legitimately making fun of Dabo Swinney and Clemson a couple weeks ago. Like they were saying the era is over. This team's not good. And then just because we get 15 teams losing one day, Clemson's suddenly a good football team. I do think that SMU will beat Clemson. It's good that they have not played each other this season. I think that helps a lot. But if SMU beats Clemson, Alabama is in. If they don't, I still think you have to put SMU in because you can't punish them for losing in the conference championship. And SMU, I mean, they have a relatively respectable schedule. Like they don't have the marquee win, but they've beaten everyone they really could have. And they lost to a BYU team at the time. That was a good football team, 18-15 at home. So I don't know. I could just as easily see the committee bumping SMU out. I really could.
I could too. It also would have gotten really interesting if Notre Dame lost, because Notre Dame has some of the best metrics in the country. They've actually got the number one point differential, but if you lost to, USC and Northern Illinois, like they couldn't have been the playoffs. So it is interesting for Bama to be that heavy of a favorite to make the playoff, though. I think really it's not an indication that they're saying you're only getting one ACC team. I don't think that's what they're saying. SMU, I believe, is a 4.5 or a 5-point favorite against Clemson. So I think Bama's chances to make the playoffs are almost coinciding with SMU being favored.
They're 2.5 right now.
Okay.
That is the game, though. Like if SMU does not win that football game, Alabama's probably not in, but also Clemson's now the 18th ranked team in the AP poll. If they beat the 8th ranked team, do you bump SMU out because you want to get the bigger brand in there? The brand plays a big factor here. And Alabama has the best metrics out of Ole Miss and South Carolina. 100% agree with that. But the brand is what is also pushing Alabama to the top. Nick Saban is also pushing Alabama to the top. People want to see Alabama in because for damn sure, too, if Alabama gets in, they're going to make a run because some of the projected brackets had them like against, I don't know, Indiana, and then you go play a SMU team. Like Alabama could coast to the semifinal game.
They could. And if they get in, they would be probably the 12, right? They would probably be the last team in.
11 or 12, I would say.
Yeah, 11. And so most likely that puts you against the second best team from the Big Ten if they are the 12.
Penn State. It could be Penn State.
Well, I was going to say, I think it would probably be Penn State. For the whole year, we thought it was going to be Oregon or Ohio State, whichever team lost. It's probably going to be Penn State now if they honor their word of we're not going to punish you for losing in the conference championship. So if we assume Oregon beats Penn State in the Big Ten championship, If Penn State is the 5 and it's Bama as the 12, that's a pick 'em, you know?
Yeah, definitely. All-state playoff predictor right now, updated December 1st. So after the games, it has Alabama with a 30% chance to get in, Clemson 42 because they control their own destiny. But right now, Alabama is the 12. They're the 14th ranked team in the college football playoff predictor. So it's a little interesting there.
Do we want to go through? You want to go through any matchups, any teams here, anything that sticks out to you?
If we have a bracket, is there like a projected bracket based on the AP poll that we have?
I think we're just gonna have to wait for the rankings on that one.
Yeah, I mean, matchup wise, I think if I'm looking at the rankings, Oregon is a serious contender. Texas, I don't know about Texas. What do you think about Texas?
So I'm really interested to see what happens in the SEC championship game here. Georgia, even though they went from 2nd to 4th in odds to win the national championship because, they barely survived Georgia Tech. And I understand that it's not the most encouraging result in the world, but we gotta remember what happened the last time Georgia played Texas. Texas was on top of the world. They were undefeated. They were at home. It's the best team they'd had in 10, 15 years since the national championship. Georgia went in there and they bullied them. Carson Beck and the offense weren't good, but Texas literally cannot do anything on offense. Now you've got Carson Beck playing really good football. He had 5 touchdowns, no turnovers in his last game. So Georgia playing this game also, Texas is 2.5-point favorites at a neutral field in Atlanta. I'm giving the home field advantage to Georgia. So I am a little curious how Texas is even favored in this game. And if Georgia beats them again, then I'm basically going to be out on Texas.
Well, I kind of want, because if they met in the playoffs again, I would kind of want Georgia to lose to Texas because I do have a future on Georgia. Like I think it's really hard to beat a team for the 3rd time if we did get that matchup in the playoffs, and we probably would at some point if the bracket lined up like that. But going off that Georgia Tech game too, I think that's the best possible win Georgia could have had. I don't think you could get a better win than that because Georgia Tech's a better football team than a lot of people expect. Georgia has shown the ability to come back in the second half too many times this year. You don't want to get to that point, but Georgia is one of the best teams in the country. Kirby Smart's one of the best coaches in the country. He knows how to motivate these kids. And you saw it in the second half when Georgia had them on the rails. They didn't hesitate. They didn't flinch. They just kept playing football. And then to win in 8 overtimes, especially when it was, they got the ball at the 1-inch line after the PI in overtime. Like they didn't hesitate. Everyone in the country knew that Georgia Tech was running the quarterback there, and Georgia just didn't flinch. So I would be very scared if I was a team that had to face Georgia with how Carson Beck's playing. His past 3 games, I think 11 touchdowns, no picks, 1,000 yards through the air combined. And on top of that, too, this team is still Georgia. We saw it when they had the game down on the line. They found a way to win, and that's what championship teams do. And now you have that momentum coming off that game. I think that's a better way to win than blowing Georgia Tech off the field 42-14.
I really couldn't agree with you more. If anything, and the 2 biggest things for me, one of which you said, which is momentum, which I also just want to tie into the word unity. If there's no easier way to make a strong bond with your teammate than to go do something really hard together and to get it done. That, even guys who don't like each other, you can look each other in the eye and say, we are a part of this together. So I'm with you for just the internal bonding of that team. It doesn't get better than the Georgia Tech win. And also Kirby Smart, to me, put on full display why he has the power to win a game just on his own. If you look at a bunch of metrics, and I'm not talking simple point differential, I'm talking add them all up, weight them however you want. Penn State against Georgia, you'll see Penn State's the better team. That's how it looks. But for Kirby to, Georgia was down 17-0 at halftime. They were down in the 4th quarter. They had to score 3 touchdowns in the 4th quarter just to get it to overtime. And as soon as they did get it to overtime, Georgia Tech looked like the team that ran out of plays first. I know they had that one crazy where there were like 2 or 3 offensive linemen or guys.
That was the PI. That was the PI.
It was, yeah. But Kirby being able to withstand all of that and constantly calling the timeouts, making Georgia Tech and Brent Key go to different plays. He controlled overtime as a coach. He's not even on the field, and he was probably the most impactful player, quote unquote, in overtime.
Yeah, when they came out in that like special formation and Georgia had no clue how to line up to it, and they already used timeout. That was Georgia Tech's best coaching move of the night. Obviously, it didn't work out for him, but I think there were a lot of people that came out and said, the ACC can play with the SEC because look at Georgia Tech almost beat Georgia. Like these are two even conferences, but they didn't, number one. And then how many times or how many teams in the country can come back 17 points? How many, like very few can do that, even at home. How many teams in the country can do the Alabama comeback that they had and realistically should have won that game too? And then, on top of all that, when you're looking at Georgia right now, they still found a way to win the football game. And that's really what matters in the end of the day. I think Georgia's by far one of the best teams in the country. Kirby Smart is one of the best coaches in the country, and that's what makes them really dangerous too. So whether they win the SEC or not, I think the loser of the SEC honestly has an easier path to the college football playoff based on the past few brackets than if they win it. But we'll see, Grant. Penn State at Georgia, though, I'm taking Georgia in a heartbeat.
Yeah, I am too. If Georgia loses the SEC championship game, they're not the 5 to me. They're the Big Ten's going to be the 5. If Georgia wins and Texas loses, I think it gets interesting. I think they could be the 5, probably the 6 at worst. But if Georgia loses, then I could see them being like the 7, 8, 9, somewhere in that range. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it really just depends on what happens in these results. I think the teams that are getting the buys are kind of set in stone. And I think whether it's Bama or I guess if Clemson gets in, they have to be the champion of the conference, and it gets a little weird. If Bama gets in, they're kind of locked at the 12. If a team's going to win their conference, we kind of know which 4 are getting the bye, and we know the Big 12 is going to be the 5 seed. That next loser is where it can change a lot.
Yeah. And two, when you look at Georgia against Georgia Tech, I just want to say one more thing about this. That shouldn't have been a close game. Georgia Tech played really well. They ran the ball great. Haynes King was fantastic besides the fumble. Georgia got stopped on 4th and 1 on the 20-yard line going in. They fumbled on the 40-yard line going in, and they missed a kick in the first half. Shouldn't have been close.
Georgia Tech did also fumble, though.
Sure, they did. But honestly, if Haynes King doesn't get that, which I don't know if he was short or not, it looked like they were marking him forward. But if they punt the ball to Georgia there with 2 minutes to go, the way Carson Beck was dicing them up, he's scoring. He's driving 80 yards to win the game. Or not win the game.
The Carson Beck piece is what I think is so interesting here.
He's unbelievable.
We tore Carson Beck apart, and rightfully so. He had 12 picks in 6 games. He was leading the country in picks. Like you said, 11 touchdowns, no turnovers in his last 3 games. At the start of the year, there were more people that had Carson Beck as the first pick in the draft than Shedeur Sanders. His stock completely fell down. Don't get me wrong, but this is a guy we know who has the talent to go out there and win games. He just wasn't doing it for a long time, and we started to convince ourselves that maybe he didn't have it in him. Well, these last 3 games, he's reminding you, no, he does. And yeah, it was against Georgia Tech, but you've won 30 straight games at home. It's an in-state rival, and while there is the pressure of win this game, you're in the college football playoff, I know Georgia didn't even care about that. It's about putting little brother in their place when they're coming into your house and hitting you in the mouth. And Carson Beck was fantastic, not just overall, but when he needed to be. That is what is so scary about Georgia going into the playoff.
Yeah, Carson Beck's fantastic. The throw, I forget what part of the game it was in. It was late in the game, but there were 4 defenders, and he fitted over 4 defenders into the end zone. That's an NFL throw.
I knew exactly what you were going to say. It was up the left seam to Lovett.
Yeah.
And credit to Lovett. Lovett dropped some more passes than I've ever seen anybody does, and he held on to that one. So credit to him for that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. But, to wrap up our college football playoff discussion here, I think there's a few legitimate contenders on this list. There's teams that aren't going to be able to compete. I don't think Boise State's going to compete. I don't think Indiana, SMU.
Give me your list of teams that have a chance to win it all.
Oregon. I don't want to say Texas yet because honestly, the second half against Texas A&M offensively was very concerning. Defensively, when it comes down to it, like Texas A&M isn't going to score, so I don't look at Texas being like super great on defense in that game because Texas A&M isn't good. They have a freshman quarterback. But I'd say Oregon, Georgia, Ohio State, and honestly, Alabama.
I have the exact same list.
Yeah. If Alabama gets in, they're going to make a run. This team is not going to roll over and die. It's a big game team. And I think I would hope if the Tide get another chance, Kalen DeBoer is going to have these boys ready to play. I would hope.
Well, I talked about this on one of our earlier shows, which is if you look at Alabama's schedule throughout the season, it's like every time there's a big game or a really big spot, they win and they exceed expectations, whether that, upsetting Georgia or just blowing out whoever they're facing. And it's like when the spotlight's off, the pressure's off, that's when they lose. So he's got to figure out the grind of the SEC schedule. But again, I'll remind everybody, won national championships at Sioux Falls, got to a national championship with Washington. I don't know his record at this point. It's like 115-10, whatever it is. The guy just wins games. So you get them in this atmosphere where he's able to really leverage his coaching ability with the buy-in from all his players. They are extremely dangerous, whether they have the 3 losses or not.
Yeah, it all comes down to Jalen Milroe. If Jalen Milroe shows up, and he only has to show up for 4 games, if he shows up for 4 games in a row, they could be the national champions. People are like, oh, this Alabama's team done. They should have been out of the mix when they lost to Oklahoma, blah, blah, blah. Nobody cares. Like, realistically, people don't want to see Bama in because they're the best team. They're one of the best teams. And they're sick of Bama just winning. But Bama is still Bama. And I don't care if Kalen DeBoer is at the helm. I don't care if Nick Saban's at the helm. It doesn't matter. This team is still Bama. They still have the fan base. They still have the culture there. And if Jalen Milroe shows up for 4 games, they could be the national champions more likely than a lot of these teams. There's a reason, like, you're going to see it. If Alabama does get in, their national championship odds currently, I think they're like 12th right now. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're 7th right now at 16-1. I think it was like 22-1 2 days ago. And they're the 6th ranked, 7th ranked team. If they get in, you're going to see them jump to the 5th ranked team behind Oregon, Texas, Ohio State, and Georgia.
And one last thing on Texas here. I'm not trying to discredit anything Texas has done. Texas's defense is unreal, but I think they can get to the national championship game. I don't think they have the difference maker, whether it's quarterback, whether it's running back, whether it's head coach, whether it's an impact player. I don't think they have that guy that allows them to win a national championship.
Quinn Ewers is not that guy. You know who is that guy?
And he's injured.
Yeah. And you know who is that guy? Carson Beck. That's who's that guy. Carson Beck is that guy.
He's playing like him right now. Did you know that a lot of Georgia fans hate his girlfriend?
Well, yeah, she's the reason he sucks. He's been spending too much time playing friggin' pickup basketball in the yard.
Well, so apparently, and I can't confirm this myself, but my girlfriend went to Georgia. She's very in tune with everything. Apparently, first of all, he's dating one of the Cavender twins, I believe, who are TikTok famous, whatnot. But she goes to Miami, and I guess when Beck was playing well, she was saying that you're not a real Georgia fan if you're making fun of him when he's at a low moment right now. Like, this is your quarterback, this is your captain. And basically all the Georgia fans were like, what right do you have to tell me I'm not a Georgia fan? You don't even go here. You're not a Georgia fan at all. You're just dating our quarterback. So apparently there's beef between the girlfriend.
I don't like the full sleeve on him, though. I hate that. It's not a quarterback look. How many good quarterbacks have a full sleeve?
That's a good. I'm trying to think right now. What quarterbacks have a sleeve?
Like he did not have a full sleeve last year. I don't think, did he?
No, he didn't.
Yeah, he started sucking when he got the full sleeve and a girlfriend. So now we got a Carson Beck. Just keep doing what you're doing right now. You're getting the job done. He looks really good. But there was a period there where the full sleeve and the girlfriend had to go.
I'm looking at NFL teams right now. I'm trying to find a quarterback with a full sleeve.
There's not one quarterback in the NFL that was full sleeve.
Tua has a half sleeve,
and he sucks.
Is Will Levis tatted?
No, he's got like something on the inside of his arm. All right, so you're just proving our point here. Tua and Will Levis have tattoos on their arm. Okay, what's that say?
Hold on, I'm almost done. I'm almost done. The Buck Baker, no. Bryce Young, no. Gino doesn't have tats. Yeah, you're right.
There's no.
I only find like max 2 quarterbacks that even have tattoos at all, and nobody has a full sleeve.
Like Max Crosby. What are you trying to be, Max Crosby? Like, relax. So I don't get the full sleeve. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But if you're gonna rock it, you got to keep doing what you're doing.
All right. Which is worse, wearing or having a full sleeve or wearing gloves on both hands?
full sleeve. More quarterbacks have worn gloves on both hands for sure.
I was thinking of your Kenny Pickett claim.
Well, Kenny Pickett's terrible too, but like at least Kenny Pickett's like won football games. He was an NFL quarterback. And that was a bad draft by them. But yeah, I mean, I get the gloves on both hands if you're playing in like the cold or something.
Was Kenny Pickett the first quarterback in that draft?
He might have been. No, because Pittsburgh wouldn't have.
Well, I think he got drafted like 20th. And hold on, I gotta look this up now. Yeah, he was drafted 20th. This was the Trayvon Walker, Aiden Hutchinson, Sauce Gardner, Stingley year.
Okay.
He was the first quarterback at number 20.
Okay.
That should be a sign. If you're taking the first quarterback at 20, that should be a sign he's not the guy.
Wasn't a good quarterback class. Yeah, I mean, Russ is cooking. I think Justin Fields will cook eventually there. So we'll see.
In Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
You think they're going to keep him?
Justin?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so
I don't think because who's going to pay him? He's not going to get a big contract anywhere.
He might not get a big contract, but he's on a 1-year deal right now. What's Pittsburgh going to offer him? Because if you're Pittsburgh, you're thinking you have Russ for another 2, 3, 4 seasons. So are they just going to bring him back on another 1 year?
I think you give him a decent deal because what's Russ's contract look like? He's there for.
I think he's also. This is still part of his Denver deal, but I believe he's on the last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Like if I'm Russ. If I'm the Steelers, like not saying you move on from Russ, but Russ is going to be, there's going to be somebody who wants Russ more than Justin Fields. Let's see.
Yeah. So Russ is, this is his final year of his deal.
I mean, Russ is going on his age 37 season. How many quarterbacks are good after 37?
No, I'm with you. I'm not saying he's the future of the franchise, but I also think he's been incredible this year. Like I got to give the guy respect where it's due. So you're thinking he's got at least 2 years, let's say.
So 2 years, Justin Fields still isn't even 30 at that point.
No, I'm with you. I'm not saying Justin Fields should be off a roster, but I'm saying I don't know how much Pittsburgh can afford to offer him. Like a 1 year or 2 year deal, low paying. I'm saying there might be another team out there that's willing to offer him some more to bring him in.
They have him for another year, I think, unless there's a player option. Free agent 2025, undrafted free. So they moved it up a year. So he's Justin Fields is only going into his age 26 season next year. I don't know. I mean, who would take Justin Fields and trust him to be their starting quarterback right now, looking at the depth of quarterbacks coming up in this draft?
The Jets.
But the Jets can go draft somebody. The Browns have Jameis. Like Justin Fields does not bring you closer to a Super Bowl. I think Justin Fields is the best way to get Justin Fields like as a championship level quarterback is to have him keep sitting behind Russ.
I don't think you're wrong. I honestly don't. I think that's he was 4-2 when he was in there, and time in that system with Mike Tomlin probably is only going to make him better. So I guess it's just a matter of, can he be patient enough to wait 2 years? Yeah,
can he? And that's the question. But you also have guys like, okay, well, Sam Darnold just took up a spot. That was a Justin Fields spot. Daniel Jones is probably going to go to Minnesota and be JJ McCarthy's backup. Like that's a spot that you could have seen Justin Fields potentially going to. So there's not a lot of places that need quarterbacks, especially washed up quarterbacks in their age 26 season. I'm not saying Justin Fields is washed up per se, but he's not necessarily a guy. If I can draft a kid or I can take Justin Fields, I'm probably going to draft a kid.
You know what's crazy about Fields being 26? Josh Allen is 26 years old.
That's great.
It feels like he's been dominating the NFL for so long.
Yeah, that's insane. All right, Grant, speaking of Josh Allen, why don't we talk a little Super Bowl market here for the last 5 minutes of the show. The Bills now are the favorites in the AFC over the Chiefs. I think we both assume how it's going to go. The Chiefs are going to beat them in the postseason. I can't. This is kind of what happened last year too. The Chiefs, there was that 6-game slide where they weren't playing as well as they're playing right now either, by the way, where they dropped in the odds. Like I got them to win the Super Bowl at 6-1, and they're now 5-1 last year. I got them at 6-1. They're now 5-1. So we're kind of seeing that same thing. you don't count out Patrick Mahomes. And I think people are starting to count out Patrick Mahomes again. We've seen the story, and the story plays out as them winning the Super Bowl.
So I'm with you. I would feel like a fool betting against Patrick Mahomes and Indy, even if they lose. Mahomes is like what, 12-1-1 against the spread as an underdog, like 11-3 outright, whatever the stats are. He just doesn't lose as an underdog. It's one of the worst bets you can make is betting against him. The thing that does concern me, and I'll be honest, is obviously everybody knows they've been scraping away. They should not be 11-1. They've had so many things go in their favor, so many elements of luck, things you just can't even account for. The thing that does worry me is even when the Chiefs weren't playing well last year and we knew that they were going to turn it on, their defense was great the whole year. And that was like the backbone. The defense started the year really well for the first 5-6 weeks. They have been terrible for like a month and a half. I'm sorry. They have not been good at all. Now they've got the personnel, and you think you would trust Steve Spagnuolo in the big moments in the playoffs. And the offense is getting better with DeAndre Hopkins. Like, all that is true. But if that defense can't get back to where it was, then I do have real concerns about this team. Because other guys out there, I know Lamar has a spotty playoff history, and that's putting it nicely. But the Ravens, the Bills, there are teams out there, even the Steelers now, there are teams out there that can score points. And if defense is not going to be a strength of the Chiefs, then you've got a real problem.
Yeah, you have a big problem, but I still can't say it's a legitimate problem until they're beaten in the playoffs. Like, this team is still a one-loss team right now. I don't care if everything's gone their way, and if what happened against the Raiders was should have been a dead ball foul or a live ball foul. We can't sit here and say that. But when you look at these games, how they're winning them closely, they should never even be close. The Chiefs are just allowing teams to hang around. So if you get Patrick Mahomes playing to his peak and the offense playing to their peak and them finishing in the red zone, because that's been their biggest issue all season. It's like they get to the red zone, they kick field goals. If they get to that peak and they can finish in the red zone, they still are the best football team in the AFC because they have Patrick Mahomes.
I'm with you. They would be my pick. Not really surprising anybody here. I think the Bills and the Ravens are clearly the two teams who are in position to upset them. Might just come down to, if the Bills play the Ravens, who wins and who gets to face the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game. If I'm throwing another team that's in there, yeah, I know the Steelers have been great this whole year, and I don't want to discount them. I don't look at them as a team that I can see getting to the Super Bowl. I think the Chargers are an interesting pick just because we know what Jim Harbaugh can do. Recently, Nick Sirianni, believe it or not, overtook him for the highest win percentage amongst active coaches. But for a while, it was Jim Harbaugh, and he did just win a national championship last year. And the Chargers have the best defense in the NFL. So I'm not saying I would pick them, but if I am looking for a team to add to the Ravens-Bills upset potential, I would put the Chargers in there.
Yeah, I just can't see the Chargers getting for them to get to the Super Bowl. You're going to have to get by the Bills, Chiefs, and Ravens, and realistically, two of those teams, depending on where you're at in the bracket. So I just can't. I can't get behind them as much. I can't really get behind Pittsburgh either because I don't trust Russ over Lamar, Josh, or Patrick. But when I'm looking at the Super Bowl market right now, there's 5 teams that can win the Super Bowl: Lions, Eagles, Bills, Chiefs, and Ravens. I don't think the Packers can win the Super Bowl. I don't think the Vikings can win the Super Bowl. The Steelers, the Chargers, they're going to have a very tough time winning the Super Bowl. So I'm thinking five teams right now for me, which should not be a surprise.
I think the Packers could if Jordan Love didn't have such dumbass turnovers.
They need a lot to go right for them.
Yeah.
And they have an easier route. I think the NFC is easier than the AFC.
Well, so speaking of the NFC, I think we should talk about, the Lions and the Eagles. All of a sudden, 2 NFC teams are at the top of the odds to win the Super Bowl. We were kind of talking about this a couple of weeks ago. I was looking and I put something together that basically said the Lions are still probably the best team in the NFC. We're not, maybe the NFL, but for this conversation, we're not worried about the AFC, just the NFC only. Lions are probably still the best team in the conference, but I think the Eagles are not far behind, and they match the things the Lions do very well. The Eagles also do very well. So I think that gives Philly a chance to match up with them. And you've lost value over the last couple of weeks, but it is still there. The Eagles have nearly twice the value the Lions do. So while I'm not saying the Eagles would beat the Lions, when we factor in betting odds and things of that nature, I think the Eagles are probably the better pick than the Lions are.
Yeah, and that's the same thing with the AFC right now. Like Eagles are the best pick in the AFC or NFC value wise. Ravens are the best pick in the AFC value wise at 10-1. So they're like, you can look for the longer odds because I don't think there's that much of a difference between the Lions and the Eagles. I still trust the Lions a little more. Looking at the AFC teams, I don't trust the Ravens as much as I trust the Bills or the Chiefs, but the Ravens for 10-1 is a really good price when you're getting the Bills and the Chiefs at half that.
You know what's also pretty crazy about the Lions is if they lose one time, they could potentially be the 5 seed.
Yeah, that's
Because
how good the
if all the Vikings have to do is beat them in their rematch, and then the way tiebreakers fall and whatnot, it could end up being that a 15-2 team is the 5 seed, which would be insane.
yeah. You know who the biggest threat is in the NFC, Grant?
This guy, Jaden.
No, not Jaden. You're behind the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now, so I'd cool off. Tampa Bay, Baker Mayfield, dog. Anthony Nelson,
you know what, Baker? The Bucks have no chance of winning the Super Bowl, but they are just like the worst possible round 1 matchup.
Yeah, you don't want to play them, especially if you're the Eagles. You don't want to go to. Well, the Eagles will win the NFC East, 100%. Did they win the NFC East already? Or am I blanking? The Bills won the AFC
not
East.
yet, but it's pretty locked up.
It's written. So if you're the Buccaneers, you would probably if the Buccaneers do somehow win the NFC South,
if they're the 4, they get the first wild card team, which right now I believe would be the Vikings.
No, they get so first wild card, so 2, because 2, 3, 4. So they get the Vikings. Yeah, if you're Minnesota, you don't want to go to Tampa Bay. You don't want to go fire the cannons. You're in trouble.
Those are teams that I know Minnesota's been much better overall, but I don't look at them as too far apart from one another.
Who do you trust more, Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield?
This is the weird thing about Darnold. Darnold's been really good against good teams, and he's been bad against bad teams. And I'm not saying the Bucks are bad, but they're not the Lions, they're not the Eagles. So like what's the feeling? What's the pressure that's going on there?
The Bucks aren't good, but Baker Mayfield as an underdog is fantastic. And to top it off, you'd have to go on the road. And to top it off, Baker's a dog.
And the Niners play hard. We've talked about that plenty of times, whether it's the Chiefs game, the Niners game, they play very hard.
They're done, though. They're not even getting in.
I mean, Kirk Cousins does not want to go to the playoffs.
No, I don't know. It's the Falcons, the Niners, like these teams. I trust the Bucks a little more because of their schedule. They just find ways to win. I mean, that game against the Carolina was not good. They're not a good football team. The Buccaneers are not good. Panthers aren't good. But like the amount of like willingness and just like stick-to-itiveness that the Buccaneers had in that game was pretty impressive. I thought Baker actually got hurt on purpose to go like fire the boys up. It kind of looked like that.
Well, I thought he was done. I thought he was coming out. And
I thought he tore his knee. I thought he like tore something in his leg, like the way he was hurt. And then he goes in the blue tent, and then you see Kyle Trask run 2 plays, and like Baker's pacing back and forth on the sideline. Like, this guy just get hurt to like fire the boys up, and then they run play action. He throws a pick. I'm like, nope, he didn't. He's hurt.
Did you see what he said about the flag planting and everything?
Yeah, that was pretty good. Let the boys play. They should. Honestly, if you get a flag, if you're pissed off about somebody planting the flag, like Ryan Day, like, oh, we're not going to let people plant a flag in our field. Like, don't lose as a 20-point favorite at home. Same thing. Like I give Steve Sarkisian a lot of credit here. And again, Texas versus Texas A&M was never a competition. Texas did not need to go plant a flag in the middle of the field, but he's like, we win with class here. Like, I hope when the day comes, like the same thing happens. I understand that perspective too. But if you get a flag planted on your field and you lost as a heavy favorite, you deserve to get the flag planted. Just walk in, take your L. Like Arizona State planting it for Arizona. Like, okay, guys, you were a big favorite. You were going to win the football game. But like Michigan, come on. They just won as a 20-point underdog.
So my opinion of it is, first of all, this can only happen if the road team wins. And you're supposed to win home games, especially against conference opponents. Yeah. So take care of your business. Win at home. I think there are certain things that are beyond the pale in sports. Certain things are out of bounds, like spitting on your opponent is out of bounds. Grabbing a guy's ankle and doing a gator roll when he's already on the ground, that's out of bounds. These are all things that there's signs of personal disrespect, or you're trying to get somebody injured, like what Al Shahir did to Trevor Lawrence. That's out of bounds. Planting a flag is it's disrespectful, but I'm not coming up to you and disrespecting you. It's like asserting my team is better than your team. We came in here. It's like you went to battle. That's what you always say about a game. It's like going to battle, and you won the battle. You conquered the opponent. So I don't have a problem with it. Is it classy? No, it's not classy, but I don't think it's classless either. I think some of the brawls might be a little classless, but I actually think people get too worked up over this debate. If you don't want them to plant the flag, don't lose at home. Don't lose to your rival. It's that simple. And honestly, if you are a team that does lose and the other team plants the flag, take a picture of it, frame it, put it in the locker room. That's what we are working for this entire offseason, to make sure that never happens again. That does more good for your program than Ryan Day, like you said, going to the press conference saying, oh, we're not going to let anybody plant their flag here. Well, you know what? Whether they had a flag or not, they planted themselves all over that field. You were a 3-touchdown favorite as a team that is favored to win the national championship. You lost to a team that was below 500.
Yeah, that's the situation where Ryan Day has to say, yeah, we got beat as a 20-point dog. They can drag their flag all over our field because they deserve it. Like, that's what you need to say in that situation, more than we're not going to let it happen. If you didn't want to let it happen, you shouldn't have lost as a 20-point dog. But I forget who said this. It was somebody. It might have been Joel Klatt. It might have been Josh Pate. It might have been somebody on ESPN. But they said nobody. It might have been Stephen A. Nobody has ever in the history of flag planting has ever planted a flag and lost the football game. So, like, just don't lose. It's not hard.
I like that. Don't lose.
But anyways, Grant, why don't you take us out of here?
Guys, that's going to do it for this episode of Ride the Line. Tanner and I appreciate you all joining us. Before you click off, do make sure you hit that subscribe button. Helps us out a lot. Also, hit the like button if you enjoyed. Jump in the comments. Let us know what you think of our college football playoff predictions. Of course, Tanner and I are going to be back in a couple of days reacting to the latest college football rankings and giving some bets for the college football and NFL weekend. So, like the video, hit the subscribe button, and we will catch you all in the next episode of Ride the Line.